We're talking about practice. Ben Johnson sends a message to the Bears saying their practice habits are yet to reflect a championship caliber team, and now it's on the players to respond. The Bears defense down 3 key starters as they welcome in Dak Prescott, who Johnson says is in total control of the field. And of course, familiar territory as Matt Eberflus makes his return to Soldier Field, this time as Cowboys DC, making for a chess match on both sides. That's all coming your way this week on Bears Blitz. Hello, everyone, and welcome into Bears Blitz, brought to you by IGS Energy. I'm Cassie Carlson alongside Lou Canellis and Anthony Herron. We're going to get you ready for the matchup on Sunday as the Bears return to Soldier Field, of course, looking for their first win of the season, welcoming in Dallas. And I'm looking at how these two teams match up. Both defenses have some holes, so I think it might be a shootout on Sunday.
Oh, man, this is going to be fun. Last time the Cowboys and Bears got involved in a shootout like we expect to see on Sunday, 2013.
Okay.
And the Bears won that game 45-28. Let's say it happens again.
There we go. Okay, an early score prediction. I like it, Lou. And when you think about the fact that, yes, Dallas has a first-year head coach, as do the Bears. So each team still feeling themselves out, let alone the opposition is going to be on the field at Soldier Field on Sunday. So there's still a lot of uncertainty, I think, for both ball clubs. But it does seem to me that the tone the Bears have set this week is going to help tell the tale.
Yeah, let's talk about that tone, because we know they're coming off of that 31-point loss to the Lions. And Ben Johnson sent a message to his team through the media this week saying that he needs to see more in practice. Take a listen.
I thought as a whole that team, they played a little bit harder than us. And that's a reflection of me as a coach. That's a reflection of our coaching staff, and it's a reflection of our players too. When you play a good team like that on the road, that you gotta be all out and every single snap, and that just was not the case. So specifically, it was everybody.
Are there guys that need to practice better too?
I think our practice habits are yet to reflect the championship caliber team.
All right, so this message really started on Monday when Ben Johnson came out of that Lions loss saying he wanted to see more competition at practice and specifically what players do when the ball isn't in their hands. Lou, what did you think of his message and doing that just after 2 weeks?
I'll tell you what, I absolutely loved it. And I'm talking now as a broadcaster, as a fan, as a season ticket holder. Listen, there has been a losing culture at Hallis Hall and Soldier Field forever, for so long. I don't even care to go back how many years. I do know this. The Bears have been to the playoffs twice since 2006. It needs to be better. And what he's trying to do is change a losing culture with the Bears. He took some responsibility. He's talking about their practice habits. He was telling us during training camp that they were practicing well, that things look good, that it was a good week of practice. So he is saying, listen, I'm pointing the finger at myself, but I demand much more from my team. And I like to hear that. I want a coach who's going to be transparent with the media and the fans so we understand what is exactly happening and not happening with this team.
And it's one thing to be 0-2. You're only 2 games into the season, but what they walked into in Detroit, that was a buzzsaw like none of us really expected the results of that game to look like. And Ben Johnson has been demanding the entire time. We've all been there during training camp. Cass, you've been there every day. But to have those results on the field, the other 6 days of the week matter so much. And there's young players on this roster who perhaps haven't really been through the rigors of an NFL regular season and don't quite understand yet what it takes to be as prepared, as detailed as possible. And I know there's a lot of questions about who's getting the rock and who's going to break in and who's getting playing time. But I like the fact that right now Ben Johnson seems to be sending the message that has to be earned on those other 6 days.
Remember when he said no block, no rock back in the offseason? That's obviously now translating in season. They practiced more than 2 hours on Wednesday, turned around, practiced inside on Thursday. And when talking to Kevin Byard, he said it was a Warrior Wednesday type practice. They were in pads, and he said it was almost reminiscent of that training camp practice that we all talked about because it was so intense. Now, the other storyline heading into this game is going to be the return of Matt Eberflus to Chicago. He was asked about the response he's going to get at Soldier Field, said he hadn't really thought about it much, but Caleb Williams said his time with the former Bears head coach wasn't wasted. Flus is familiar, though, with Williams' tendencies. The defense went against them every day, or the offense went against his defense every day. So this chess match, how do you think it has an advantage to one side or the other?
Well, I think Eberflus has the advantage without question because his defense went up against Caleb Williams, and he found out where the deficiencies were in Caleb's game out there, and he's going to test and see if Caleb has improved on those deficiencies with Ben Johnson leading the way. He also has the ability now to look at 2 games of game film to see where he's improved, and I think that we all can agree that if you take Detroit's game plan, which is keeping Caleb in the pocket, all right, and forcing him to beat you from the pocket instead of what happened in the first half against Minnesota, and you allow him to use his legs and create magic out there, I think that Dallas will have the advantage if they can keep him in the pocket.
Historically, Matt Eberflus defenses have been able to take the ball away. They've been able to create interceptions and force fumbles at a high rate. Over the years that he's called defenses, there were certain seasons where he had success with that, running the defense in Chicago as well. So you've got a young quarterback in Caleb Williams who, aside from one sort of boneheaded decision in Detroit at Ford Field, he's continued in over a year in the NFL. He has protected the football in a big way. And it's a Dallas defense that I would imagine has a very similar approach to practice throughout this week as the Bears have, because they're coming off giving Russell Wilson, as long as Russell Wilson's been in the league, his biggest performance from a yardage perspective that he has ever had. And so they've got to be salivating offensively about the opportunities they see on film.
Yeah, Russell Wilson threw for 450 yards. Now, Declan Doyle said that the focus for Caleb Williams this week, and has been every week, is on his footwork. They said it improved from week 1 to week 2, but it's all about making sure the footwork is good so that the eyes can lead the progressions, going from one to the next, making that sure if his eyes lead them, his feet are in the right place to make those throws. When you look at Matt Eberflus's defense, DJ Moore said it's going to be a lot of zone, a lot of cover 2. How can Caleb Williams exploit that?
I thought he looked much better in the second game against Detroit. We touched on, we compared it to the way he played against Minnesota. I thought he went through his progressions well. I thought he played well out of the pocket. I expect Caleb Williams to grow even more. Ben Johnson will force him to get better as long as he listens to what's going on while they're at practice, while they're looking at game film. What I don't want to do is compare Caleb Williams to Russell Wilson, because remember, how long has Russell Wilson been in the NFL now?
Yeah, right.
14 seasons, 9-time Pro Bowler, and while he may be a bit long in the tooth, he still got it up here, and he knew where to take advantage of Dallas's defense.
The deep ball. And that's, if there's anything that just from a deficiency perspective in Caleb's game right now, yes, rhythm and timing is a part of it, but want to see him continue to get more accurate with the vertical pass. And Russell Wilson, one of the best in league history at throwing the accurate, deep and vertical pass. And there should be some shot play opportunities for the Bears offensively if they can get there. Think about Olamide Zaccheaus through a couple of games here. Yes, he's got some receptions, but if there's a vertical threat the Bears can access, he would seem to be one of those guys who the Bears will have the opportunity to hit with the vertical pass against this Cowboys secondary that, even though there are a lot of zone concepts and they'll go some deep shell looks, even cover 2 at the safety position, Giants were able to get behind him, and we saw Russell Wilson take advantage of that. So it'd be nice to see if the Bears can get more vertical with their passing attack, because I've been impressed. To me, my eye shows me progress in how Caleb is operating within the pocket, with the control, with the rhythm, the timing, that clock that you need to have to get the ball out. That's been better so far through 2 games this season than his rookie year. Would like to see if he can hit some of those shot play opportunities.
Luke, really quick, do we see more from Colston Loveland?
Well, I hope so. That's for sure. You know, I was thinking about Colston Loveland this week. So far, 2 catches for 12 yards. That is not going to cut it. And I get it. Listen, all season long, he is going to be compared to Tyler Warren, the tight end in Indy. I kept thinking about that joint practice, Cassie, with Miami. I don't know if you remember, but at one point, Caleb Williams caught Colston Loveland in stride. Folks, this guy's a gazelle. He's 6'6", 243. All right, if you get him in stride with a head of steam, you get him the football, Big A, I'll tell you what, no DB in football is bringing him down. And a tight end, a linebacker can't keep up with him. So they've got to get him in open space. And I think Ben Johnson's got to take some responsibility to get him the football as well.
And he did, which he said he's going to address going into this week. Hopefully we'll see more from both tight ends.
We got to continue to choose us and believe in the work that we put in, because, a lot of the, whatever the validation, pats on the back, it's not going to come from the outside world. Sometimes people want to kick you when you're down. So when you're up, you just be able to focus on the ones that was there when you was going through it when you was down. But at the end of the day, guys, we 0-2. You know, I mean, that's no excuse, but it's early in the season, and everything that we want is still ahead of us. And the teams that we lost to are two really good teams, but we get an opportunity to see both of them again, you know? And so that's the exciting part. And we may be down, but we're far from out, and we just getting this thing cooking.
All right, that was Grady Jarrett's response when he was asked what makes him believe the team is trending in the right direction. Guys, he had a very impassioned response to that in the locker room on Thursday. What'd you think of his message?
Well, I thought his message was delivered, but I'm going to throw this to you, Big A, because how do veterans in that Bears locker room handle what a first-time head coach is saying about their practice habits?
Well, Ben Johnson has been really consistent with the style of messaging so far. He's a formidable personality, and I would imagine the Bears locker room respects him a lot for the way he delivers that message. Now, you know, if the team continues to struggle and if the results aren't there on game days, then sure, it can be more difficult to really show up and be engaged with that message on a regular basis. But I believe at 0-2, there are veterans on this team who the personalities that they've brought in here, that they've added to things. Joe Thuney is accustomed to winning. Grady Jarrett has a high standard. He's an excellent player and leader. That's a part of why they've added some of these key figures in here to make sure that when there's times like this, frankly, no one thought struggles would necessarily hit the Bears as early as they have so far, but they've added to sort of the competitive DNA, the championship texture that this team can try and pursue. So Grady Jarrett and other veterans, I do believe they're receiving this message.
Yeah, 11-year veteran. I'm glad he defended he and his teammates to the media right there. That's what I expect from a leader.
And I think Kevin Byard was also trying to share the same message, that he is a leader by example. When he was asked about showing up to practice every day, he's like, I show up and I practice like a pro, as I have my entire career. And he's another captain on that defense. Let's talk about the pass rush. It's struggled to hit home the first 2 weeks. 20.8 pressure rate, which ranks 28th in the NFL. You're a defensive lineman. You're looking at trying to make Dak Prescott, a more traditional pocket passer, uncomfortable. How do they do it, or do they have to dial it up some other way?
I don't know how you dial it up, Big A. I really don't. I don't know how you can apply Dennis Allen pressure, and if that means bringing the blitz, when you've got your two best defensive backs out, Kyler Gordon and Jalen Johnson. And by the way, you're going up against a guy like CeeDee Lamb, who one time in a game had 13 catches for 227 yards, and George Pickens, who had 195 receiving yards in one game. I mean, I think you've got to depend on your front four to get home on their own.
Turpin, Ferguson, there are weapons all over the place, and Dak Prescott is seeing the field as cleanly and clearly as any quarterback in the sport. So the weaponry is there for Dallas. The defensive front has to step forward. I think you guys are both exactly right about that. And this is a D-line that week one, I actually left that game against the Vikings somewhat encouraged by the way the D-line was able to impact the pocket against a young quarterback, against J.J. McCarthy. Now, he's more prone to holding the football than Dak Prescott is. But I do believe there's potential for the Bears to get home with more frequency, and it's going to be difficult to expect that on the back end they can perform at a higher level if they don't start to heat things up. That's where Montez Sweat, Javon Dexter, they've got guys who have to impact the opposing pocket in a much bigger way.
I think that's why this is such a big conversation right now, is because you're so depleted in the secondary. You're not going to have your Pro Bowl shutdown corner in Jalen Johnson. Kyler Gordon is now considered week to week. So you're watching Tyreek Stevenson, who needs to have a bounce back game against guys like CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. And then Deshaun Wright going up against a team who drafted him years ago and then traded him away. And Ben Johnson said he's not worried about Tyreek Stevenson. He's a South Florida kid. He believes he's going to bounce back, but a ton of pressure is going to be on them on Sunday.
Well, yeah, right now I think quarterbacks have a rating of $156 when they throw Tyreek Stevenson's way. That's really bad in the NFL. So Stevenson, this is his step-up game. I mean, really, this is his game that he needs to come through. And what we haven't talked enough about, Big A and Cassie, is not only have they lost Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon and T.J. Edwards, they've also lost Terrell Smith, who would have been a backup, who might be starting if he was healthy. They've lost Jalen Jones this week. They've lost some of their guys that are the backups. So really, they're thin in that secondary, and they need to have big games.
It's a beat-up Bears defense right now, especially at the second and third level. And frankly, that was the strength of this defense coming into the season. And so to lose personnel back there, hopefully some of the depth will show up. But your guys who are your most well-compensated, Montez Sweat, Tremaine Edmonds, Jalen Johnson is out. So within your front seven, those are guys that you're counting on to be at their best. And you need to see peak performance from Sweat and Edmonds against Dallas.
And Ben Johnson said the Cowboys offensive line playing really well, and Dak can manipulate you with his cadence, which I know he's trying to get Caleb Williams to do as well. Welcome back to Bears Blitz. It's time for our player to watch, brought to you by IGS Energy, and it's Big Ant's turn to choose this week. Who you got?
One of the most physically gifted players every time he takes the field is Montez Sweat. He's impactful, but he's sackless so far this season. The Bears need Montez Sweat to not only impact the pocket on a consistent basis, because you'll see him press the offensive tackle back near the quarterback. Got to get Montez Sweat getting rid of those blockers. Bring force into the pocket, get rid of that blocker with violence, and get to the QB. And every once in a while, I'd love to see him just fly into the backfield. Even if he doesn't make a play, you'd be shocked at how much that impacts the opposing team when you just have a big, angry-looking guy flying across the line of scrimmage. And what that will end up spelling is the reason I'm wearing this T-shirt.
Oh, here we go.
Victory. The Bears need a victory, just like my old Bowls
Make it happen.
back in the day. Get us a victory. Montez Sweat will lead the way.
All right, Chicago needs a victory. That is it for this week's edition of Bears Blitz. We'll see you Sunday morning for Bears Game Day Live from 9:30 to 11 right here on Fox 32 Chicago, your home of the Bears. See you
Just
next
flying
week.
in the backfield. That's all I'm asking. Just take off, Montez. Take off.